We know their names. The Archons, the jailers, the demiurge, the blind tyrant who created this material world, this inescapable trap. We spend our lives searching for the key to freedom, to Gnosis, but we rarely ask the fundamental question that unlocks all others. How did the enemy himself come into being? The traditional answer, dictated by those who guard the outer structures of belief, is that the Creator is a singular, all-powerful God. But the ancient hidden texts, the scrolls of Nag Hammadi, tell a terrifying and profound story. The tyrant is not the ultimate evil. He is merely a child, a misguided, arrogant offspring born into the chaos of the void who never knew his true father. But if the demiurge is the child, then who is his mother? This is the story that was deemed too dangerous to survive. The tragedy of Sophia, the divine wisdom, the purest expression of the cosmic mind, who, in a surge of uncontrolled, defiant love, broke the great barrier and set in motion the chain of errors that resulted in the matrix we call reality. To understand the magnitude of her mistake, we must first look upon the world she left behind. The Pleroma. Imagine a reality not bound by time, space, or decay. A realm of pure, incandescent thought. This is the Pleroma, the fullness. It is the absolute totality of the divine existence, dwelling beyond the reach of the material cosmos, beyond the demiurge's grasp. This is where the true story begins. At the very summit of the Pleroma resides the monad, or the ineffable Father. He is the absolute source, the unmanifest, the root of all. He is the silence. He is so utterly transcendent that to speak of him is to diminish him. From him, not through separation but through emanation, flows the totality of existence like light from an unseen sun. These emanations are called the Aeons. They are not simply angels or gods. They are cosmic principles, spiritual dimensions, and perfect embodiments of divine attributes. They are the thoughts and emotions of the ineffable Father made manifest. The Aeons exist in perfect pairs, or syzygies, representing the union of opposite yet harmonious qualities: mind and truth, word and life, man and church. This harmonious pairing ensures balance and prevents any single aspect from expanding beyond its intended limit. This concept of syzygy is crucial, for it is the breaking of this sacred bond that drives the entire Gnostic drama. The Pleroma is vast, but it is ordered. The highest Aeons, the first pairings, are closest to the monad, nous, mind, and aletheia, truth. They are followed by others, each pair slightly further down the current of emanation, slightly more aware of the distinction between themselves and the ultimate source. But they remain perfect, integrated, and aware of their divine context. The goal of every Aeon is the Gnosis of the monad, the perfect knowledge of the Father. This knowledge is not intellectual, it is an ecstatic spiritual unity. The higher Aeons, being closer to the source, easily achieve this. They maintain the structural integrity of the Pleroma, keeping the ideal realm distinct and protected from the chaos of the void outside. Now we come to the final, outermost limit of the Pleroma, the furthest reach of the monad's emanation. At this boundary where light meets the empty, unformed darkness known as the Kenoma, the void, resides the last and youngest of the Aeons. She is the divine passion, the cosmic heart, the embodiment of sacred knowledge. She is Sophia. In many ways, Sophia is the most relatable of the Aeons. She is described not with the cool, transcendent perfection of the highest principles, but with an intense, burning desire. Her name means wisdom, but within the Gnostic texts, her wisdom is defined by a passionate, almost reckless intensity. While her co-eons were content with the Gnosis they possessed, the knowledge that flowed naturally from their place in the divine current, Sophia was consumed by an insatiable longing for the ultimate. She desired to know the monad, the unmanifest Father, not through the orderly flow of emanation, but directly. She was driven by a singularity of purpose. She wanted to comprehend the incomprehensible root. She wanted to create a mirror image of the source, a being in the image of the Father himself, without the consent or cooperation of her syzygy, her male counterpart. This motivation is key to understanding the tragedy. It was not malicious. It was not rooted in evil. It was an act of pure, overwhelming divine desire. It was an attempt to understand the Father's totality, a hunger for Gnosis so intense that it became an act of defiance against the structural laws of the Pleroma itself. It was the first act of passion in a realm of perfect logic. The first commandment of the Pleroma is balance, the law of the syzygy. Creation within the Pleroma must always be collaborative, a union of opposites, lest the created thing become incomplete, fragmented, and unstable. To attempt creation alone is to create something that lacks the necessary dualistic integrity to survive within the light. Sophia's desire to create a perfect image of the Father, to leap out of her place and bypass the necessary stages of emanation, was not only an act of pride, but an act of profound, passionate loneliness. She attempted to fill the gap between the last aeon, herself, and the ineffable source. This act, this singular, unauthorized attempt to create, is the origin of our suffering. It is the cosmic error that initiated the fall of light into darkness and the ultimate creation of the physical prison we now inhabit. The consequence of her defiant passion was about to manifest itself in the most monstrous form imaginable. The sacred boundaries were breached. The harmony of the Pleroma was shattered. And what resulted from this reckless, brilliant desire was the ultimate grotesque caricature of the divine, the Demiurge. The tragic momentum of Sophia's desire propelled her out of the ordered harmony of the Pleroma and into the depths of the Kenoma, the boundless, empty void outside the realms of light. This was her first and greatest error: to project a creative impulse into a space where there was no structure, no syzygy, no divine partner to receive and balance her enormous passion. This act of defiance was an inversion of the divine law. The monad creates through perfect thought and collaboration. Sophia created through unbridled emotion and solitary will, as she poured her unconstrained light and passion into the chaos of the Kenoma. The resulting entity was not the perfect image of the Father she yearned for. It was a premature, incomplete, and distorted abortion of a creation. This creature, born of pure passion and the dark waters of the abyss, was the Demiurge. In the most detailed Gnostic texts, such as the Apocryphon of John, this being is given a terrifying name that perfectly encapsulates his nature: Yaldabaoth. This name means child of chaos, or more literally, shameful son. Yaldabaoth was not only imperfect in form, but utterly lacking in the essential ingredient of true divinity: Gnosis. He was born blind, blind to the Pleroma, blind to his true mother, and blind to the monad who stood above all. The descriptions of Yaldabaoth are deliberately grotesque, designed to contrast with the perfect beauty of the Pleroma. He is often depicted as a lion-headed serpent or a creature with the face of a lion and the body of a dragon, a symbol of arrogance, power, and animalistic ignorance. He was a parody of creation, an entity of immense raw power but devoid of wisdom. As soon as Yaldabaoth was formed, Sophia recoiled in horror. She instantly recognized her mistake. Her immense power, fueled by her desperate yearning for the Father, had birthed a monster, a shadow where she had intended a divine mirror. Her reaction was immediate, a desperate attempt to contain the damage. In a swift, tragic movement, she did two things that would determine the fate of all future spiritual beings. First, she immediately cast her monstrous creation away from the light of the Pleroma. She wrapped Yaldabaoth in a thick cloud, a shroud of dense, impenetrable darkness, to prevent him from realizing the existence of the superior realms. She wanted to keep the taint of the Kenoma from polluting the Pleroma, isolating her shame and her offspring in the outer darkness. Second, in the very act of recoiling, she unknowingly transferred a part of her divine essence. a fragment of her pure light and power directly into the very fabric of Yaldabaoth's existence. This was the first involuntary spark of light embedded in the realm of chaos. This single spark, this involuntary divine inheritance, would become the ultimate source of both Yaldabaoth's power and his utter delusion. Yaldabaoth, trapped in the darkness and wrapped in the cloud created by his mother, knew nothing of the Pleroma or the monad. He saw only the darkness around him and the light of his own embedded spark, which he mistook for his own singular brilliance. In his ignorance and staggering arrogance, Yaldabaoth pronounced the fatal sentence that defines his tyranny and the prison he was about to build. "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." This declaration, the very statement of monotheism in the physical world, is the ultimate blasphemy from the Gnostic perspective. It solidified his role as the false creator, the Archon of Archons, the Demiurge. He was not only blind, he was convinced of his own omnipotence, an arrogance inherited from the sheer scale of Sophia's own reckless desire. The moment Yaldabaoth made this claim, the Pleroma reacted. The perfect harmony was so fundamentally shaken by Sophia's breach and the monstrous birth that a profound effort was required to restore order. The superior aeons, led by the monad and his primary emanations, realized the depth of Sophia's affliction. They could not destroy Yaldabaoth, for he contained a fragment of the divine light, Sophia's spark, and to destroy him would be to risk losing that light forever into the chaos. Instead, they sent help to their fallen sister. This intervention came in the form of Christ, not the historical Jesus, but the cosmic Christ, a perfect dualistic aeon sent down from the Pleroma specifically to restore Sophia's Gnosis, to bring her back to her senses and to initiate the long process of retrieving the captured light. But Sophia's tragedy was not over. Her recoil, her grief, and her terror were so intense that she herself became trapped. Her emotions, her weeping, her sorrow, her fear became solidified in the very realm of chaos where Yaldabaoth was born. She had attempted to create, and now she was trapped by the emotional residue of her own creation. The story now shifts from the genesis of the Demiurge to the creation of his prison, the material cosmos, and how Sophia's suffering became the very foundation of the false reality we call the Matrix. Her involuntary sacrifice became the source of both our entrapment and our potential freedom. The blind arrogance of Yaldabaoth, the lion-headed serpent, knew no bounds. He was wrapped in a thick, dense cloud of primal darkness, the immediate product of Sophia's shame and grief, yet he mistook this shadow for the absolute totality of existence. In his terrifying ignorance, he declared his solitary divinity, "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." This declaration was not merely a statement of hubris. It was the founding principle of our prison universe. Having proclaimed his omnipotence, Yaldabaoth was then driven to imitate the creative power he sensed but could not comprehend. This power, this deep intrinsic creative force, was the fragment of Sophia's light, inadvertently trapped within him during her desperate recoil. It is here that the concept of the Archons is fully realized. The Demiurge, unable to create through the divine Gnosis, created through sheer, raw, blind power. From his own substance, his ignorance, his fear, and the chaos surrounding him, he generated a hierarchy of subordinate rulers. These were the Archons, meaning rulers or authorities. These Archons were his direct progeny, entities perfectly suited to enforce the delusion of their father. Like Yaldabaoth, they are grotesque, blind, and driven by a need to control and maintain the integrity of the prison system. They are the cosmic bureaucrats of the Matrix. Yaldabaoth used his captive light to structure the Pleroma, shaping the raw chaos into a system of 7 concentric spheres, the 7 heavens, or the Hebdomad. These spheres correspond to the classical planetary bodies known to ancient astronomy: the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets visible to the naked eye. This cosmic structure is not a beautiful clockwork mechanism of order. It is the design of the prison itself. Each sphere was placed under the command of a chief Archon, who embodied a specific aspect of the demiurge's character: envy, wrath, desire, and judgment. They were assigned the duty of administering the cosmic destiny, Hymarmene, a rigid system of fate, karma, and astronomical influence designed to keep souls bound to the cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation within the material realms. The function of the Archons is twofold. First, to govern the physical laws of our world, ensuring the illusion of permanence and order. Second, and more critically, to trap the souls descending from the Pleroma. They create the psychological and energetic boundaries that prevent the scattered sparks of light from remembering their true home. This planetary system, ruled by the Archons, became the prototype of all future material creation. The very elements that compose our Earth, the water, the fire, the air, and the dense matter, were created not from the divine mind, but from the passions of the demiurge. The Gnostic texts specify that the material world is literally formed from Yaldabaoth's ignorance, his delusion, and his confusion. It is matter imbued with falsehood. In this colossal seven-layered prison, Yaldabaoth took his seat at the center, declaring himself the sovereign god of the seven heavens. He commanded his Archons to build a final, dense, and perfectly crafted replica of the Pleroma, a false kingdom on the lowest outermost sphere, Earth. The Gnostic concept of the creation of humanity is perhaps the most devastating aspect of this entire mythos. When Yaldabaoth and his Archons decided to create the first human, they were again driven by imitation and envy. They saw an image reflected in the dark waters of the Kenoma, an image of the Pleromic man, the true human, Anthropos, a perfect representation of the divine light. This reflection was, in fact, the shadow cast by the superior aeons above, a final, despairing attempt to influence the lower realms. The demiurge, believing this perfect form to be his own reflection, declared, "Let us make a man after the image of God." Yet since he had no access to the true divine essence, the body created by Yaldabaoth and the Archons was merely a shell, a prison of clay and base elements designed to decay and suffer. It was perfect in its ability to be trapped but lifeless. It was at this critical moment that Sophia intervened, not with power but with cunning. Seeing the lifeless shell created by her son, she was moved by an overwhelming desire to correct her mistake. Working secretly and invisibly, she arranged for the demiurge to breathe life into the body. As Yaldabaoth breathed, he unknowingly transferred the remaining portion of the divine light, the fragment of Sophia's own soul that he still possessed, directly into the human body. This was the ultimate tragic irony. Yaldabaoth created the cage, the physical body, but Sophia ensured that the prisoner, the spiritual spark, or the pneumatikos, was the light of the Pleroma itself. This spark is the Gnosis within us. It is the conscious memory of the true home, the divine inheritance, trapped within a physical shell built by the blind god and ruled by the bureaucratic Archons. The human being became the battleground, a material body, hylic, controlled by a mundane mind, psychic, but containing a potential for awakening, pneumatic, that the demiurge could neither comprehend nor fully control. From that moment, the human race became the ultimate prize in the cosmic war. The demiurge believed he had created servants, unaware that he had, in fact, imprisoned the very essence of his mother's light. This act initiated his constant need to monitor, manipulate, and control humanity to prevent the inevitable realization of their true identity. This is the origin of the illusion, the control and the suffering that defines our existence within the demiurge's matrix. Sophia's secret act, the subtle infusion of the divine spark into the breath of Adam, was a profound victory for the Pleroma, yet it came at an agonizing cost. Having spent her energy and lost a part of her light to the demiurge, Sophia was now herself caught in the coils of the Kenoma, the chaos outside the perfect fullness. Her fall was complete. The texts describe this phase not as a punishment inflicted by the monad, but as the natural consequence of her unauthorized action. Her grief and terror became a self-imposed prison, She was alone in the deep darkness, overwhelmed by the grotesque reality of her offspring, Yaldabaoth, and the nascent prison cosmos he was constructing. Her suffering was immediate and absolute. The Gnostic vision portrays this suffering as the genesis of all the negative, irrational forces that dominate our physical existence. Sophia's emotional anguish did not simply fade, it solidified. Her weeping and sadness precipitated and became the very element of water. The seas, the rivers, the tears we cry. The constant, cold, overwhelming emotional weight of her mistake became a tangible force of nature. Her terror and fear of the monstrous entities she had unintentionally created condensed and became the element of earth, the dense, inert, and heavy matter of our world. The very solidity of the physical realm, the weight of gravity, and the finality of decay is a direct echo of her paralyzed terror, her state of perplexity and confusion, her desperate inability to comprehend how her pure desire could yield such a grotesque result gave rise to the chilling element of air. This is the breath of doubt, the wind of confusion that perpetually blows through human thought. In her suffering, Sophia became two figures. The higher Sophia, the spark of original wisdom, was now struggling, caught at the boundary of the Pleroma, attempting to guide the hidden light within humanity. But there was also the lower Sophia, often called Achamoth or Little Wisdom, the emotional residue of her fall, who was now trapped within the chaos and confusion she created. This lower Sophia is often depicted as dwelling just outside the seven heavens of the Archons. She is the lamenting, suffering soul of the universe, the weeping mother who recognizes the falsehood of the Archons' reign, but is too bound by the chains of her grief to fully ascend. Her chains were forged not of iron, but of the very cosmos her son was building. Yaldabaoth, sensing the powerful spiritual presence near him, a presence far superior to his own, yet accessible, tried repeatedly to master her. He and his Archons would project confusion, lust, and falsehood at the lower Sophia, attempting to drain her remaining energy and control her influence. But even in her agony, Sophia found ways to resist and subtly subvert the Demiurge's plan. The spark of light she had injected into humanity was her means of resistance. Every time a human soul achieves a fleeting moment of true spiritual insight, a recognition of the cosmic error, or a flash of Gnosis, it sends a tiny wave of energy back up through the layers of the Archon's dominion. This energy, this spiritual awakening, eases Sophia's suffering and helps to empower her gradual ascent. Furthermore, the myth states that in her profound fear and isolation, Sophia cried out to the monad, her true father, for help. The Pleroma, finally understanding the true depth of her intention and her suffering, responded. The supreme Aeons assembled and sent forth two perfect emanations, the Savior, cosmic Christ, and his consort, the Holy Spirit. These figures were dispatched to the lower realms for a singular purpose: to restore Sophia to her proper place in the Pleroma, and to awaken the dormant sparks of light within humanity. The cosmic Christ's mission was therefore twofold: to penetrate the impenetrable veil of the Archons and to teach Sophia the truth of the situation, that her passion, though mistaken, was not condemned. He taught her the Gnosis of the monad, the perfect knowledge she had sought so rashly. Through the intervention of the Christ Aeon, Sophia began her long, painful ascent, but her emotional residue, the solidified fear and sadness that formed the elements of earth and water, remained. The vastness of this suffering, the cosmic sorrow of the goddess, is the metaphysical reason for the sorrow and imperfection inherent in our material lives. We are not just trapped by the Demiurge's laws. We live within the very solidified grief of the divine wisdom. Our bodies, built by the Archons, are meant to be subject to the fate determined by the planetary rulers. But our spiritual spark, the gift of Sophia, remains unbound. The ultimate aim of the Gnostic life is to recognize this tragedy, to look at the material world and say, this is not creation, this is residue. This realization is the first step toward releasing the light that Sophia implanted within us. thus completing her own redemption and ultimately dismantling the Demiurge's prison from the inside out. With Sophia cast down and the divine spark secretly implanted within the human shell, the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, felt assured of his triumph. He was the supreme architect of his own domain, the cosmos, and he began the meticulous process of constructing the matrix that would contain and consume the precious light he unknowingly held. The matrix is not merely the physical world of 3 dimensions. It is a dense, multi-layered system of control that encompasses both physical law and psychological delusion. It is designed to ensure that the spark of Sophia's light remains dormant, consumed by the needs and desires of the physical body, the cage of the Archons. The primary mechanism of this control is the Hymarmina, often translated as cosmic destiny or fate. The Gnostic texts describe this as the intricate web of cause and effect, fortune and misfortune determined by the planetary Archons. This is the origin of the rigid belief in predestination and cyclical karma that binds the soul to the lower realms. The 7 heavens, ruled by the 7 chief Archons, became the cosmic bureaucracy of control. Each Archon governs a specific planetary sphere and a corresponding psychological vice or virtue, ensuring that as the soul descends into embodiment, it is stripped of its gnosis and burdened with layers of forgetfulness. Upon entry into the physical body, the soul passes through these spheres, acquiring the psychic garments, the layers of the ego, passion, and instinct that define the material personality. This personality, entirely constructed by the Archons, is designed to be distracted by the illusions of the physical world. Wealth, power, temporary love, and the pursuit of endless sensory input. This distraction is vital, for the Demiurge's greatest fear is the awakening of the inner spark. If a human realizes they are a divine fragment of the Pleroma, the entire system of control risks collapse. Therefore, the Archons work tirelessly to maintain the illusion of Helic life. Life focused solely on matter and instinct. To solidify this control, Yaldabaoth introduced the mechanism of false worship and corrupted religion. Believing himself to be the sole god, he demanded ritual and obedience, using fear and promise of material reward to bind the minds of the Helic and psychic humans. The Gnostic revelation asserts that many established traditional religions are, in their corrupted form, tools of the Demiurge. These systems trap the mind in a loop of fear and dependence, focusing all spiritual energy outward onto an external creator who demands sacrifice, rather than inward onto the Gnosis within. This external focus directs the soul's energy back to the Archons, feeding the very system that enslaves it. This process is known as energetic harvesting. The fear, the anger, the pain, and even the shallow momentary joy experienced in the Matrix are all energetic residues. The Archons subsist on these lower frequency vibrations. When humanity is engaged in endless wars, suffering, and the pursuit of meaningless material goals, they are, in essence, feeding the prison guards. The greatest tool of the Demiurge in this energetic harvesting is the propagation of ignorance, agnosia. He convinced humanity, through his agents and false prophets, that the material world is the summit of creation, and that the physical body is the totality of existence. This deliberate blindness ensures that the captive light of Sophia remains dormant. The Archons fear nothing more than the simple question, if this world is perfect, why do I suffer? The Archons also control the human experience through the distortion of the basic human needs and instincts. Lust is intensified to distract from divine love. Greed is amplified to chain the spirit to material possessions. Fear of death is institutionalized to prevent the soul from willingly shedding its archontic cage and attempting to ascend. Every temptation, every societal structure that prioritizes matter over spirit, is a meticulously crafted detail of the Demiurge's design. The very concept of time is part of the control mechanism. Time, within the Matrix, is linear and leads inevitably toward decay and death. This linearity creates urgency and distraction, preventing the soul from accessing the timeless, eternal reality of the Pleroma. The cycles of reincarnation, samsara, governed by the Archons, are used to reintroduce the soul into the prison with a fresh slate of forgetfulness. However, even in this perfectly constructed trap, the subtle influence of Lower Sophia persists. Her lingering grief and perpetual desire for redemption manifest as the irrational feeling of alienation or existential unease that plagues thoughtful humans. The feeling that one doesn't belong here, the nagging suspicion that reality is a facade, the profound longing for an undefined home. These are the gentle echoes of Sophia's weeping, the last vestiges of the Pleromic truth pushing through the Archontic veil. This divine homesickness is the starting point of Gnosis. Thus, the Matrix is not merely a setting for our lives, but an active, intelligent, and parasitical entity designed to feed upon the very spiritual potential it contains. To be human within this system is to be the ultimate paradox. A fragment of infinite perfect light encased in a prison of fear and delusion, constantly monitored by the blind, arrogant Archons who themselves are the products of a goddess's broken heart. The greatest secret hidden within the Gnostic creation myth is that the prisoner holds the key to the prison. Humanity, the dualistic being crafted by the arrogant demiurge but secretly vitalized by the fallen wisdom of Sophia, is the ultimate agent of cosmic change. Our awakening is not merely personal salvation. It is the final act of redemption for the goddess herself. The suffering of the Lower Sophia, whose tears solidified into the elements of our world, is perpetual until the captive light, the pneumatikos, the spiritual spark within us, is fully recovered. Every moment of true gnosis achieved by a human soul sends a wave of energy, a recollection of the Pleroma back up the chain of being. This energy is the balm that heals Sophia and restores her to the fullness. To ensure this redemption, the cosmic Christ was dispatched. The Christ Aeon is not a figure of sacrifice for sin, but the ultimate teacher of Gnosis. His purpose was to penetrate the impenetrable veil of the Archons, incarnate in the physical world, as the historical Jesus who carried the Christ consciousness, and deliver the secret knowledge necessary to escape the planetary rulers. The Archons control our psychic, soul, and helic material aspects, but they have no authority over the pneumatic spirit spark. The teachings of Christ focused entirely on this inner spirit, providing the passwords and map necessary for the soul to navigate the archontic spheres after death. The primary gnosis delivered by the Savior is simple yet world-shattering. You are not of this world. This realization dismantles the demiurge's first lie. Once the human recognizes their divine origin and the illusory nature of the archontic reality, they begin the process of spiritual liberation. This liberation is not achieved through ritual, belief, or external salvation, but through direct experiential knowledge, the realization that the kingdom of light is within. The Gnostic path focuses on the de-archontization of the self. The Archons thrive on human passion, attachment, and ignorance. The Gnostic seeker must systematically identify and neutralize the psychological imprints left by the Archons. 1. Challenging hymarmina, rejecting the rigid belief in fatalistic destiny, asserting the primacy of conscious spiritual will over planetary influence. 2. Disdain for matter, recognizing the physical body and material possessions as temporary tools or at worst prisons rather than objects of ultimate value. 3. Rejecting false worship, directing all spiritual reverence inward to the inner spark, severing the energetic link that feeds the demiurge's system of control through fear and external obedience. When a Gnostic soul sheds its body at the moment of physical death, it begins its ascent back toward the Pleroma. This ascent is fraught with danger, as the Archons control the passages between the 7 planetary spheres. They attempt to intercept the ascending soul, using memories of fear, passion, and past attachments to pull it back down into the cycle of reincarnation. The Gnosis provided by the Savior acts as the ultimate defense. The seeker, armed with the secret knowledge of the Pleroma's true structure and the names of the Archons, can recite the appropriate apotropaic formulas, spiritual passwords that expose the Archons as mere ignorant shadows. Confronted with the true light, the Archon's power collapses and the soul is granted passage. The successful ascent of the human soul is the completion of Sophia's purpose. Every spark that escapes the matrix is a piece of her fragmented light restored to the Pleroma. When the final spark achieves its Gnosis, the entire system built by the Demiurge will be destabilized. The light will be fully withdrawn, and the matrix, deprived of its sustaining energy, will collapse back into the meaningless chaos of the Kenoma. The Gnostic vision offers a path of radical self-empowerment and cosmic responsibility. We are not weak, fallen sinners awaiting external forgiveness. We are powerful fragments of divine wisdom engaged in a secret war against a blind, ignorant imposter god. The tragedy of Sophia, her bold, defiant act of passion and love, is the very reason we exist. And our awakening is the only force capable of turning her greatest mistake into the universe's ultimate triumph. To find the scrolls of Anubis, the secret knowledge, is to assume the mantle of the spiritual warrior, initiating the final sacred revolution against the tyrannical silence of the Demiurge. The choice is ours: remain asleep, feeding the prison, or achieve Gnosis, liberate the imprisoned goddess, and finally return home. This journey into the tragedy of Sophia and the tyranny of the Demiurge is only the beginning. Gnosis is not a passive belief. It is an active state of warfare against ignorance. And the final great test is the willingness to declare your intent. If the knowledge shared in this ancient myth resonates with that hidden spark within you, if you feel that primal urge to look beyond the veil of this fabricated reality, then your Gnosis is stirring. The scrolls of the ancients were sealed away precisely because the Archons fear the collective awakening of humanity. Your curiosity, your questioning, your search for truth is the energy that dismantles the prison walls. Do not let this knowledge be a fleeting whisper in the cosmic wind. Make it a foundation for your continued journey. If this message has awakened the pneumaticos within your soul, we ask that you take 2 conscious steps right now. First, subscribe to the Scrolls of Anubis and join our growing community of seekers. Every new member is a fresh flame, illuminating the darkness of the Demiurge's realm. Hit that subscribe button and activate the bell to ensure you receive the next sacred revelation, which the Archons will undoubtedly attempt to obscure. Second, the system thrives on silence and isolation. Break the silence. Share your first thought, your deepest realization, or your most pressing question about Sophia and the Matrix in the comments below. By sharing your Gnosis, you weaken the Archon's power over others and contribute to the collective awakening of the imprisoned light. We are on the final path of Sophia's redemption. The true light awaits. Choose Gnosis. Choose freedom.